This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Good morning. Hope you're okay. It's Phin Adams here, live on a Sunday, the first Sunday of February. Pinch and a punch, first of the month. Here we go then. How are you doing? Hope you're well. Lots planned for today's show. We're talking well-being and everything in between on this February day. It is getting lighter. Definitive.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
And talking it out, we will be doing on this very Sunday morning. Cold, wet, windy. Have you been impacted by the floods? How are you doing today? Feel free to let me know. This is a live radio show on Teachers Talk Radio by teachers, for teachers, and really anyone who might just find a little bit of solace, a little bit of benefit in listening to a little bit of talking on a Sunday. I'm Phin Adams. I've been a teacher for just over 10 years, and I've straddled the border between education and radio. And finally, this fits both. The worlds meet. And here I am, live on a Sunday, dedicated to mental health, dedicating to maintaining that mental health. That's the aim of today, and that's the aim of every single show. It's a real pleasure and a privilege to be able to keep you company. As I said at the start, if you do want to send me a message, feel free. Just go on the Podbean app. All you do, click on today's show. I'm live. You can message me on the Podbean app. But of course, if you're listening as a podcast, you won't be able to do that, but I'll pick that up on next week's show. We've got 4 regular features today. As always, I'm going to talk you through a little bit of mind gym, just like going to the gym for physical health. Really helpful to go to the gym. For that, you go and try and exercise a bit of mind and mind over matter. So we'll do a little bit of mind gym. More about that later on in today's show. Also look at the papers, Sunday papers. If you can hear a cat, by the way, in the background. I'm at my mum's house, so that's why you can hear a cat, because she is in the studio, wanted to stay in the studio and play with the headphones, and is now crying to get out. So I will... when we have and hear from our sponsors, I will facilitate that. Just like we facilitate things in the classroom, we facilitate... What am I saying? Let's get back onto track and what I'm actually doing today. So Mind Gym is what we'll start with, as always. I'm going to review the papers, the Sunday papers, give you some inspiration maybe for the classroom on the Monday to talk about with your form or your PAM or whatever you call the pastoral side of things. Current affairs, world affairs, making those links. We'll talk through the Sunday papers. What else have we got? Of course, we've got food for thought and the Sunday reset, a mindfulness meditation live on a Sunday morning. So all of that's to come right here on Teachers Talk Radio. As I say, do send me a message should you so choose. I would say I'd love to hear from you, but that is the classic thing said in any radio show. And I said to myself when I planned today, do not say that. So there we are. I've said that I won't say it, and I'm going to hold on to that rule. Let's start with Mind Gym then. So what I wanted to talk about today is, do you sometimes find you are brought down by other colleagues? And I mean brought down in the sense of teaching can be quite a whingy profession, can't it? It can be quite a profession of whingers. Do you find that impacts you? When you have someone coming into your classroom and just having a moan. I mean, I do it too. But at the same time, my reflection was actually that amount of negative talk can bring you down. What's the phrase? Radiator, be a radiator, not a drain. And we are a profession, aren't we, that does, well, I suppose it's part of being a teacher. Part of being a teacher is you do pick up on the negatives, because that's part of your job, isn't it? To spot where a student isn't learning to the best of their ability, highlight it, and actually possibly do something about it. So that is part of our role. So maybe we are all inbuilt whingers. And of course, human evolution says exactly the same thing. You know, you'll be able to sort of have your own views on evolution, but if we buy into the evolutionary theory, it's the same thing. Sorry about this while I just adjust my microphone. So apologies if there's just some slight variable sound going on. Evolution dictates that we scan for threats, right? We scan for threats all around us. Threats all around us are supposed to be the ones that, we pay attention to. That's the reason for why our brain then does have that kind of propensity to look for the negative. But here's the thing. If you get the negative reinforced to you by others, do you find you absorb it? We call it the emotional sponge. And if you do, what do you do to kind of squeeze all of that out? Because I don't know. I found myself today. I was doing I was just talking with someone actually, and it turned into quite a sort of in-depth, heartfelt chat. But it was quite a negative chat. Negative about the school, negative about education, negative about where things are going. And actually, it did impact me because then the next day, I actually got to school feeling quite angry. And I thought, well, that's interesting. There could be something in that. I really should not be adjusting a microphone live, but there we are. You're witnessing what it's like to be doing something in a studio that isn't actually the set studio. What a nightmare this is. Let's just see if I can get it back to where I want it to be. That's a bit better. Can you hear me better now? Just message in the chat if you can hear me better. If you can't, then I'm so sorry, but I had to adjust it because I thought I can't do a live radio show with the microphone as it was. It just wasn't going to work. And it's not that great at the moment either. But there we are. We'll make do. We will make do live on a Sunday. So what was I on about? Yeah, I'm talking about the emotional sponge. Do you find that you absorb that kind of emotional energy? And then what do you do to let some of that energy go, let some of that energy out? Do you do anything? Do you go for a run? Do you, scream? Who knows? So that's what I wanted to talk about today. Emotional sponge and letting go of others' burdens, I guess, because that's the thing. There is this tendency, certainly that I have, to take on others' stress, almost absorb it. In TA, they call it sort of, it's the rescuer. You have the hostile persecutor, and you have the victim. And I suppose when someone is the victim and they are essentially saying that they are having a difficult time, we listen. But I guess in TA, it's important to be aware of the dynamic that can then develop. You can then turn into the rescuer and actually almost build up hostility to the supposed perpetrator or the persecutor. Am I making sense? Doing a bit of mind gym? It's all about the warm-up. It's all about the warm-up. That's what you do when you go to the gym. You warm up, right? And sometimes that warm-up doesn't work well. And this might be one of those moments. It's coming up to 9:10. We're here from our sponsors in just a sec. But if you do want to message in and just give me your thoughts on that, that would really help. Because I was sort of faced with a conundrum. What do you do? Because do you isolate yourself? Because here's the other thing. As a teacher, it is a profession that is, believe it or not, quite a lonely profession in the sense of, sure, we're having contact with students day in, day out, but we're not having a lot of adult contact. If you think about the amount of adult contact, actually, there isn't a lot of it. And when that adult contact takes place, sometimes it can be quite negative. This hasn't been done. The same pattern repeating again and again and again and again in schools. So to what extent do you absorb that, absorb the punches, and what impact does it have on you? And how do you essentially let go of some of that? Maybe it is just about doing a mindfulness meditation. There's my go-to, just to decompress and just to sort of settle. Because that's the thing, when it sort of reactivates a script back to TA. There is something in the sort of script that it reactivates when you absorb someone else's stress. You're essentially, as a teacher, having your script, whatever it is, activated if you sort of support what they're saying. So what do you do with that? Because it's not your stress. Let's face it. This job is stressful enough. It's not your stress. It's someone else's stress that you're being kind of like a sea wall. You're absorbing the energy. But at some stage, is that going to break you? Like sea walls can be breached by a storm. It's a tricky one. Something to think about. Anyway, time to hear from our sponsors right here on Teachers Talk Radio. This is a live radio show sponsored by the following. Have a listen to this, and we'll be back to talk more about the emotional sponge. You're listening to Teachers Talk Radio. It's the Sunday breakfast show with Phin Adams, 1st of February 2026. Here we go.
This show is brought to you in partnership with Hachette Learning, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Level up your professional development today and visit hachetlearning.com to explore the full range of titles.
Hey teachers, it's Tom here from Teachers Talk Radio, just dropping in to tell you about Teachers Talk Connect 2026. We are back with our amazing big annual CPD and networking extravaganza in Manchester. It's on Saturday, the 14th of March, and tickets are completely free for teachers. Just head over to ttradio.org/Connect 2026 to grab your ticket today. We can't wait to see you there.
This is Teachers Talk Radio. And
hello, the Sunday breakfast show with Phin. That's what we're doing. Yes, we'll hear the news in just a sec, but we are talking the emotional sponge, doing a bit of mind gym live on a Sunday, sort of exercising, working your way through. Maybe it is just about processing, helping others where you can process their emotions, and then helping yourself kind of detach. It's what counsellors do, because that's the thing. Day in, day out, they're absorbing emotional. And I've really thought about being a counsellor, because I thought, actually, I could be quite good at this. But then at the same time, some of the conversations this week left me thinking, I wouldn't be so good as a counsellor. Okay, I'm good as a kind of broad brush counsellor in the classroom, because all teachers have within them the capacity in theory, but also in practice will end up being some form of counsellor. So we already do that as a job, but I think the extent to which it's your main job, that's a tough gig, isn't it? That would be a tough gig to do. But it's something to think about, and it's something to think, how do we navigate the emotional energies that are put upon us? Because with a student, how do we do it? I suppose we detach. We sort of say, this is what it could be. This is what's going wrong. So maybe it's about the same thing. You have to develop some level of a detachment rather than attachment. Yes, something to think about. But yeah, I mean, it's. I don't have the answer. I just thought I'd start today's show thinking solely about that. 2 weeks to half term, though, if you're a British school, or actually, it's sometimes not the coming up week, but the week after that. It's sometimes the week earlier, isn't it? So if you're in Britain or the UK, then what are you doing for half term? It is that kind of, we're through the hump of the year, as I like to think of it. We're through the dark, cold bleakness, and there is pockets of light. Sure, it's still tremendously busy. There's still exam classes to prepare for, but we are through some of the hard times, and we're back to the best of times. Wasn't it Dickens? It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. But yeah, there it is. So what are you going to do for half term? We'll talk about that as well. Well, actually, next week will be more dedicated to a kind of preparation for half term. And what's your approach to workload? Do you take work home in the holidays? I used to work in a school where the assistant head who was in charge of professional development said exactly that. Take something home. Go with something home. And I just thought, wow. That's setting up teachers just to keep working and working and working, because you need that rest. I think this is one of the half terms where you do actually need a rest. At least in my opinion, you do. So what are you going to do for half term? That's our other talking point today. Time for the news right here on Teachers Talk Radio. We'll come back. Coming up on today's show, we've got food for thought. I'll be talking through some motivational quotes that will hopefully help you during the week, whether you're a teacher or you've just found this show elsewhere. Sometimes we get listeners from Iran, sometimes from Tanzania. So hopefully it helps you. If it doesn't, then there's lots of other things that are in this show that might help. We'll look at the papers after the news. We'll also do the Sunday resets. That's all to come right here on Teachers Talk Radio. Time now for the news.
This show is brought to you in partnership with Hachette Learning, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Level up your professional development today and visit hashitlearning.com to explore the full range of titles.
Hey teachers, it's Tom here from Teachers Talk Radio, just dropping in to tell you about Teachers Talk Connect 2026. We are back with our amazing big annual CPD and networking extravaganza in Manchester. It's on Saturday, the 14th of March, and tickets are completely free for teachers. Just head over to ttradio.org/Connect 2026 to grab your ticket today. We can't wait to see you there.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
Schools Week features comment from Ofsted boss Sir Martin Oliver about the new schools inspection framework. Responding to a question from an audience member at Bet UK about the joint attendance and behaviour strand, he said merging the two areas into one judgment did bother him tremendously. The audience member warned that the strand was particularly difficult for schools in highly deprived areas where attendance might be lower. Sir Martin stressed that his original intent was to have behaviour and attendance as separate areas. Ofsted's initial plans proposed distinct judgments for the two areas, but Oliver said that during consultation over the reforms, many people, many organisations said very clearly there were too many areas that they'd want to see a number of them combined. And the areas they talked about combining were curriculum and teaching, and attendance and behaviour. Sir Martin said Ofsted was watching the category and would carry on watching it. He also used his Bet address to announce newly inspected schools will soon be given QR codes to help prevent them from cherry-picking grades shared with parents. They will be introduced in the coming weeks. Full details of Sir Martin's Bet appearance can be found online. BBC Scotland News reports that some teachers in Scotland are spending years on the supply list or leaving the country due to a lack of permanent jobs. Analysis of Scottish Government figures shows that most newly qualified teachers in Scotland are no longer getting permanent jobs, especially in primary schools, despite schools saying they are under pressure. Education Secretary Jenny Gilruth said pay rises for teachers had made employing them more expensive, but the progress was being made on teacher numbers. It has been 5 years since the Scottish Government made its 2021 manifesto promise to tackle excessive levels of teacher workload by employing 3,500 additional teachers and reducing teachers' maximum class contact time to 21 hours per week. Scottish Government figures for 2024 to 25 show that 2,294 newly qualified teachers completed their probation year. However, only 568 of those teachers secured a permanent post. Primary teachers are most affected. The EIS Teaching Union said Scotland was 4,310 teachers down on the level promised in the 2021 pledge. For full details, government comment, union reaction and stories from individual teachers, see the BBC News Scotland website. The Guardian says ministers are scrapping target numbers for international students in the UK and will instead focus on encouraging universities to open hubs abroad as part of a plan to bring British education to people on their own doorsteps. The new international education strategy will set a target of increasing global education exports to £40 billion a year by 2030, replacing the previous target, set in 2019, of recruiting 600,000 international students a year to study in the UK. The DFE said it would also bring in toughened compliance standards to ensure those coming to the UK to study were genuine students. The Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson said, "By expanding overseas, our universities, colleges and education providers can diversify income and give millions more access to a world-class UK education on their own doorstep, all whilst boosting growth at home." But Amira Campbell, president of the NUS UK, said students wanted to learn alongside peers rather than being on different continents, and that the government must ensure the same high quality teaching and well-rounded university experience enjoyed by students in the UK is present across all satellite campuses, including abroad. More details on the Guardian website. Finally, 2 schools in Wolverhampton have been able to reopen after a smell which provoked unexplained nausea forced them to close. Paramedics were called to one school to assess a number of patients after an unusual odour was detected near the school's swimming pool. A neighbouring school was closed as a precaution. Work has been carried out on the school's heating and air handling system to remove the odour, according to a council spokesperson. West Midlands Fire Service said its specialist monitoring equipment detected nothing of concern. More details on the BBC West Midlands website. This has been Teachers Talk Radio News with Joe Fox.
Thanks, Joe. A smell? Goodness me. There it is. We've heard it all now in education. And also, I just was left thinking and almost despairing at the news. Again, here's a bit of negativity. This is meant to be a mental health hour, but the despair of the fact that in Scotland, there are teachers who can't get work. Now, that for me is baffling, given that we are in a recruitment and retention crisis in the UK. How on earth is that pocket of this country experiencing that? Bring them down here. We need them here. Goodness me. There we are. This is the Sunday Breakfast Show with Phin Adams. I hope you're okay. We're meant to be talking about mental health. There we are. I've brought the mood down. Let's bring it back up. Well, actually, I don't know if this next feature will. This is the papers. So the reason I'm doing this feature is if you've not had a chance to look at the papers, then it's helpful just as you wake up, I hope. But also, it's going to help then, I suppose, hopefully some teachers, certainly helps me, make some of the links in current affairs that we can then talk about in the classroom. Because sometimes you want to scaffold or at least do something that means that you don't just talk about the news as is. You want to do something with it that has educational value, right? Isn't that the aim? And obviously, there's some topics that need to be scaffolded very carefully. So part of this feature is to maybe think about that, and I can share my insight into how you could incorporate it. Again, I've only been teaching for a decade. There's going to be teachers of a lot more experience listening to this show and a lot less and might have better ideas. So I'm by no means saying this is what we must do. But I like to, on a Monday morning, bring in some of the papers to my pastoral guidance meeting. So I'm a pastoral person for the sixth form. So we talk about the current affairs on a Monday morning. It lends itself, and certainly that age group, it's also dependent on the age group, isn't it? Lends itself better to talking about certain current affairs than others. So let's take a look at some of today's papers. The Sunday Telegraph leads with Andrew must reveal all on Epstein. That's their headline, and that's actually following a statement from Keir Starmer, because of course, don't know if you've seen it, the new pictures of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor from the latest batch of released documents related to Jeffrey Epstein. That actually dominates most of today's papers, but the Sunday Telegraph leads with that story, and specifically the statement from Sir Keir Starmer around that and how he probably needs to testify. Sunday Times, similar. Andrew must testify or he'll fail Epstein victims, says the PM. So that, again, following the Prime Minister's reaction to the latest images of the former prince, saying Keir Starmer implied that that would be a fail of victims if he continues to refuse to testify about his relationship with Epstein. So Sir Keir has also said, in terms of testifying, this is the quote that they lead with: "I've always said anybody who has got information should be prepared to share that information," adding, "You can't be victim-centred if you're not prepared to do that." The paper also adds that the Prime Minister's comments signal a significant increase in political pressure on the former prince, who has consistently denied any wrongdoing. I suppose you could even, as a teacher, start with, because some of the pupils won't know, the ins and outs of this, start with the interview that Emily Maitlis did. Was it in 2019? And they've done a few dramatizations of that whole story of how she got it and all of that. So you could actually start with that, should you so choose. Yeah, that's just an option. If you can hear meowing in the background, by the way, that is my mother's cat meowing in the background. I let her out of the studio because she was meowing to get out, and now she's meowing to get back in. So that is how cats are. Momentary distraction when we're going through the papers on a Sunday morning. The Daily Star, creepy crawler is their headline. So this is Daily Star as it spotlights the same picture of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. I think there are 3 pictures, aren't there? There are 3 pictures that are have been released from the redacted papers. And again, it's one of those things where, as a teacher, you wouldn't necessarily need to show those particular pictures because actually that's something that they can find if they choose. You can just talk about how this is the disgraced monarch and how he's facing these charges and what do you do in that situation. I guess there's a kind of an ethical debate around all of those things potentially. I mean, there's an ominous headline coming up. So talking of what do you do, the Sunday Mirror, there's worse to come. That's where their headline leads. This is the Sunday Mirror suggesting this, quoting, I should say, a lawyer for victims of Epstein. And according to the paper, the attorney that's saying it says that there's a lot more videos and photos that are very likely to be released, and they will be damning. That's his quote. No suggestion that appearing in the documents implies any wrongdoing, of course, and all the papers look like they've reached out to the Mountbatten Windsor for comment on that. The Sun, same headline. I mean, all across the papers. So you can't really not talk about it if you're going to do current affairs in the classroom. You can't really not talk about it. So there's the extent to which you do. And one of the things I won't be doing is showing the photo necessarily, because it is quite a provocative photo that you probably don't need to show in the classroom. But certainly something to talk about. The Mail also the same, but also they have as their sub-headline, if you like, Rayner's 1 million war chest to kick out Keir. So this is their report that the former Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner has secured a war chest of more than £1 million to fund a bid to succeed Sir Keir Starmer. Because, of course, it was this time last week, wasn't it, where we were talking about how Andy Burnham might be running in the Gorton and Denton by-election. I then finished the show, and a couple of hours after that, they'd blocked him. So again, the fallout from that has been quite interesting, and we had lots of interesting discussions in the classroom around that. Again, it's interesting because do you ever get the sense that your pupils have very different frames of reference to what you have as a teacher? Because, you know, most teachers are going to be in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. So it's a different generation to students growing up that access live things on TikTok, on all those social media. Whereas, you know, I don't know, I was just left thinking, are many students interested in politics? Again, that's a sort of philosophical question. Because, of course, there's students that do politics as an A level, but yeah, it touches on the debate of being given the right to vote at age 16. To what extent is it actually capturing a body of people that have an interest in politics? Are they going to use their right to vote? Because I think actually, yeah, the next election, certainly the next by-election, will that not be the very first time that some of your students will be able to vote, 16-year-olds being able to vote? Because that was the Labour reform more recently, wasn't it? Anyway, something to think about there. Where are we? Sunday Express, 6 million workers better off on benefits. This is an interesting story. The UK could be in danger of becoming a welfare state attached to a bankrupt country. That's the warning from the Sunday Express. The paper's saying that new research shows that more than 6 million workers would be better off living on benefits. Now, that's a discussion point, isn't it? Cost-benefit analysis that you could do with your students, talking about that. The Observer, the plot against democracy inside the campaign to kill off the assisted dying bill. So an entirely different headline to the Mountbatten's one. So you could sort of talk about in your PAM time or your form time on a Monday morning, you could start with that story of the Mountbatten Windsor and the disgrace that he is facing, and just, yeah, maybe play a clip of the Mateless interview as a substitute, because it's good to have a stimulus, isn't it, on the display in the classroom. Start with that and then go into other things. Some of the other headlines. Angela Rayner, interesting to see her cropping up again. And and then finish with the plot against the assisted dying bill, which will probably be addressed by the RE teachers of the school, right? Because certainly if the non-statutory framework for RE teachers does have within it awareness of some of the moral debates that we face in today's society, and specifically around euthanasia. Certainly when I first trained to be an RE teacher, euthanasia was obviously illegal in this country, and now we're looking at, there's this whole debate around that legalization, because the assisted dying bill, it's sort of been pinged around, hasn't it, in the past 18 months, and it's contentious, but maybe that's more of an ethical one to be picked up by RE teachers, or maybe you do it in PAM time. It's really dependent on, what suits your PAM, and of course the year group, because some year groups obviously won't be as aware as other year groups of some of the things. And there it is. There's the Sunday papers, done and dusted, providing a service right here on Teachers Talk Radio. You're listening to The Breakfast Show with Phin Adams. Coming up, we've got Food for Thought and the Sunday Reset. Time first to hear from our sponsors, though, on Teachers Talk Radio.
This show is brought to you in partnership with Hachette Learning, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Level up your professional development today and visit hachetlearning.com to explore the full range of titles.
Hey teachers, it's Tom here from Teachers Talk Radio, just dropping in to tell you about Teachers Talk Connect 2026. We are back with our amazing big annual CPD and networking extravaganza in Manchester. It's on Saturday, the 14th of March, and tickets are completely free for teachers. Just head over to ttradio.org/Connect 2026 to grab your ticket today. We can't wait to see you there.
This is Teachers Talk Radio.
And this is the Sunday Breakfast Show with Phin Adams. I hope you are okay. We've got through the papers. It's just gone 9:30. If you're just waking up, what's for brunch? What are you having? I've got a nice cup of coffee here. So let's do the Sunday reset then. So every week I invite you, if you should so wish, to do a mindfulness meditation with me. Now, it's not gimmicky, because actually studies suggest that if you can do and find pockets of meditation during the week, it does improve so much of cognitive health, emotional health, really the mental health, the correlation between mindfulness practitioners and those that practice mindfulness and their mental health. It's possibly not causal, but the evidence does suggest it's useful. And it's a really useful tool in the classroom. If you ever have a really stressful time, actually doing a mindfulness meditation, I find it really helpful. So that's why I do it on a Sunday with you. And there's something in the live aspect of this show that enables that. So I've got some Tibetan bells, as always, got those for Christmas. So making use of my Christmas present. And this then will hopefully help with the mindfulness meditation that we're about to do. So all I'd encourage you to do is just focus on the sounds that you can hear and focus on the breath. Those are the 2 points, the 2 focal points. And if you catch yourself moving away or drifting off into other things, then just bringing yourself back to the breath and the sounds. So are you ready? And once you are ready, just taking a deep in-breath through the nose and a breath out through the mouth. Just breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. Staying with that breath. And just noticing the sounds that are around you. in through the nose and out through the mouth. And staying with that breath and the sound. In through the nose, right the way down, just like the sound, penetrating your body. Just breathing. Staying with that breath, your anchor. Just noticing the sound and the breath. The two might come together. Just choosing, noticing the sound and back to the breath, or both, or either. Where are you now? Just notice that sound. And then the breath. Sound and the breath and the sound. Noticing the breath and the sound with the breath. Where are you now? Just bring yourself back to the breath and the sound. Doesn't matter if you've gone away. Just celebrating that you've noticed you've gone away and bringing yourself back to the breath with the sound. And if you've just gone away, doesn't matter. Bring yourself back to just the breath. Just listening to the sounds, breathing into the sounds, because it's the first time you've heard them. Breathing in the sound, absorbing the sound. And breathing out. Breathing in the sound and out. Going at your pace, your breath. Breathing in the sound and out the sound. Just absorbing it as you breathe in and letting it go as you breathe out. Sound and the breath. That's all you need to do. And when you're ready, bring yourself back. Although, you never went away. How was that? Something a bit different, right? On a Sunday morning. And the reason I do it is because I'm trained to teach mindfulness in schools, so I know a little bit about the power of mindfulness. But I'm by no means suggesting this is a substitute for therapy or anything. And if you don't find it helpful, then you don't have to use it. Anyway, hopefully that was helpful to some. Wow. Certainly helpful to me as the presenter, just to root myself. Because I can get a bit animated, can't I, with some of the stuff that we face as teachers. And yeah, thank you so much to Joy, who's just messaged in saying that they love it. That's really lovely to hear. And as I say, feel free to send in any messages you should so choose. We're live for the next 9 minutes, and then you've got this available as a podcast to listen to. I'll be back next week at exactly the same time. But before I go, it's time for food for thought. So I've got a couple of passages for you that might help motivate you during this week. Again, these are just some of the ones that I've picked. That's just because I like to have a different motivating thing during the week to have in my classroom. So this is the one I have chosen. I've chosen to have a listen to either. And just even send me a message of what you think it means to you. I'd be really interested because, of course, poetry can have many different meanings for many different people. And even the author has their own meaning. But what we as the reader observe and take on board is sometimes very different. You might even want to share this with some of your students. This one's just called Casual Instructions, and it's from Records of the National Master. That's where it's from. True manner is when empty words are omitted, while sincerity and respect are upheld. True standard is when the person is admonished, while frugality advocated. True dealing is when distance from the cunning and fawning is kept, while gap with the benevolent and honest closed. True stance is when awareness in cause and effect is shown and distinction between transgression and merit maintained. True tradition is when contentment in tranquility and simplicity is shown, while shame in deliberate pursuits felt. Now, I picked that because I thought it's all about how finding balance, right? True stance, true dealing, true standard. I really like this one. True dealing is when distance from the cunning and fawning is kept, while gap with the benevolent and honest closed. So it's all about we strive, don't we? This is how I read it. We strive to sort of do good, be good. And whether we succeed, it's a tricky business, and you can take many angles on that. Religious, non-religious, moral, immoral. I just thought it did something for me, the balance. Again, might not make a lot of sense to you. And if it doesn't, how about this one? This is the one. I came across it because it references the Yangtze River, which is a river when I traveled when I was 19. It is a river I sort of fell in love with in China. I went on a boat, and it's quite misty, and whether the mist is smog or in fact just general mist, but the way in which the Yangtze River just flowed, it was quite mesmerizing because I thought China itself, a developed country, huge amount of industrialization taking place in China at the moment, and indeed 10, 20 years ago. But it has ancient roots. So I found this one. It's from 21 Histories in ballad form. So it's sort of a ballad. And it's called Rolling, Rolly, the Yangtze Flows East. Rolling, rolling, the Yangtze flows east, the waves washing away heroes. Right and wrong, success and failure, all empty. The green mountains remain. How many red sunsets? White-haired fishermen by the riverside, watching the autumn moon and the spring breeze. A pot of unstrained wine welcomes me again. How many events, from antiquity until now? All are a matter for our laughter and talk. I just thought I picked that because it's just a way of life. You can get so het up, can't you, in the classroom with different things. And actually, I just thought reading that is going to do something for me this week. And do feel free to use it. It's from the Book of Ballads. Beautiful stuff. Joy's just messaged in saying, really, from China? Yeah, the Yangtze River, it's in China. But of course, wherever you're listening from around the world, sometimes we get listeners. In fact, we've had a listener we've got a few different listeners on today's show joining us. So thank you so much for your company on this Sunday morning show. I'll be back next week at exactly the same time, 9 a.m., the breakfast show, where we'll talk brunch, we'll talk mental health and everything in between. As I say, if you do want a message in, feel free. There's time, just the next 3 minutes. But if not, I'll pick up the message for next week's show, where we'll have the 4 regular features. simple as that. Of course, this isn't the only show on Teachers Talk Radio. There are a number of other fantastic shows, from the breakfast shows right the way through to the twilight shows. Up next, it is going to be Points of View, where teachers share different points of view. Do check us out on socials, TT Radio. Have a look at our socials and all the different content there, because some of these radio shows are visual. I've never taken to that. I much prefer the richness that's just provided from audio. And certainly when we do the Sunday reset, it just lends itself to closing your eyes. You don't necessarily need that visual stimulus that we're so set up to gain, right? The mesmeric nature of YouTube and all those other things. Actually, it can be nice just to have the visual again. Right. Well, in the meantime, while you wait for Points of View, I'm going to be off having a bit of brunch with my mum and my niece. And I'll also be listening to a little bit of Novak Djokovic taking on Carlos Alcaraz. Now, I don't know if you follow any of the Australian Open, but it might be something that you could talk about with your pupils, because they're going to have a stance on it. I mean, some will absolutely love tennis and others won't. Novak Djokovic is on his 24 Grand Slam titles, and he's going for the elusive 25th, which will essentially mean that he will end up getting the title of the most number of Grand Slams won. So it's an elusive title. Currently, he's tied, isn't he, with Margaret Court, who is also on 24 Grand Slam titles. So he is aiming for that. Carlos Alcaraz is going for the career Grand Slams. That's where you win all 4 in 1 year. And he's going to be the youngest ever if he manages to. If he manages to get that, he will be the youngest ever individual at age just 22. So that's only a few years older than our students. Wow. There's a topic to talk about in the classroom, should you so choose. So I'm going to watch a bit of that, and I hope you have a lovely Sunday, whatever it is you're doing. And I really hope it's a day of rest for you, a day of reflection, or a day of just reset. No work, please. Don't take the work home. There's the rule. Again, no, you don't need to pay attention to that. If taking work home helps with your workload, then great. I've got it down to a point where I just keep it all in school. And I have then a life outside school, and that's tremendously helped me. But it doesn't help everyone. But anyway, whatever it is you're doing, I hope you find it rich and fulfilling. I will see you next week at exactly the same time of 9 a.m. when it will be the 1st of February. Good morning. Have a good brunch. I'll see you next week.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.